The wedding hall was glowing with golden lights, and soft music floated through the air. Guests were laughing, taking pictures, and enjoying the grand celebration. The tables were filled with colorful flowers, sparkling glasses, and neatly folded napkins. Every detail seemed perfect. But in the middle of all this happiness, a young boy named Ian felt a chill run down his spine. He had been excited for his father's wedding. He wanted to see his dad happy again after years of loneliness. But something about his father's bride, Ms. Zara, felt wrong. She smiled politely, dressed in a beautiful red gown, but her eyes seemed cold and calculating. Every time she looked at Ian, he felt a strange shiver, as if she was hiding something. Ian tried to brush off his fear. Maybe he was just nervous. But as the evening went on, he noticed little things that made him uneasy. Ms. Zara whispered to the staff, avoided eye contact with some guests, and moved around the hall in a way that seemed too careful, too planned. Every time someone came close, she acted startled, like she was afraid of being caught. Ian watched her closely while pretending to be busy with other things. He noticed her slipping away from the main hall several times, disappearing into corridors or small rooms. Each time she returned, she tried to act cheerful, but the tension around her eyes gave her away. Ian's curiosity grew, but so did his fear. He knew something was wrong. At one point, Ms. Zara went to the garden. The music and laughter made the hall feel far away. Ian followed quietly, hiding behind pillars and flower pots. From a distance, he saw her take out a small envelope and whisper into her phone. He could not hear what she said, but the urgency in her voice was clear. She looked around nervously before sliding the envelope into her purse and walking back to the hall as if nothing had happened. Ian's heart pounded. What was in that envelope? Why was she acting so secretive? His mind raced with possibilities. Was she trying to steal something? Or was she planning to harm someone? He did not know, but he felt an urgent need to protect his father. He tried to speak to the wedding staff, asking casually if they had noticed anything strange. But everyone seemed too busy, too polite, or too blind to see anything unusual. His father, Mr. Rahim, was welcoming guests, smiling, and hugging distant relatives, completely unaware of the tension growing in his own home. Ian's thoughts were interrupted when Ms. Zara returned to the hall. She walked past him, smiling at his father, but this time her smile did not reach her eyes. Ian noticed a small scratch on her hand. She quickly covered it with her sleeve. Why would someone scratch her hand at her own wedding? The question burned in his mind. He decided he had to be brave. He quietly moved closer to the bride, keeping his distance. He noticed her purse was slightly open, and a corner of a folded paper peeked out. Ian's heart raced. He knew he had to find out what she was hiding, but he had to be careful. If she noticed him snooping, it could be dangerous. While the guests were dancing and laughing, Ian found a moment to slip near the bride's chair. He pretended to look at a flower decoration, but his eyes were fixed on the purse. Carefully, he managed to glimpse the paper inside. His eyes widened as he read a few words: "Tonight, make it disappear, no witnesses." A cold sweat ran down his spine. This was not a normal wedding. Something terrible was about to happen. Ian knew he could not ignore this. He had to act fast. But how could he warn his father without causing panic? How could he stop whatever plan Ms. Zara had? Suddenly, he heard footsteps behind him. He turned quickly and saw one of the bridesmaids approaching. She smiled politely, but her eyes seemed suspicious. Ian froze for a second, unsure if she had noticed his glance at the paper. The bridesmaid moved past him without saying a word, but that moment of fear made Ian's heart beat faster. He realized that time was slipping away. He looked around the hall. The guests were enjoying themselves, oblivious to the danger. His father was laughing with distant relatives, completely trusting the woman he had chosen. Ian felt a surge of determination. He could not let this woman hurt his family. He had to expose her before it was too late. Ian quietly slipped away to a side room to gather his thoughts. He took out his phone and tried to call the police, but the hall's thick walls made the signal weak. Panic rose in him. The wedding was going on, the guests were celebrating, and his father was completely unaware of the danger lurking so close. Every second counted. He decided he would confront her directly, but he needed a plan. He watched the security cameras from a small monitor in the side room. He saw Ms. Zara moving quickly between the hall and the garden. Her every move seemed suspicious. Ian felt the tension building. He realized that the night could turn disastrous if he did not act soon. As he prepared to leave the room, he heard a faint sound, a click of a camera, the rustle of paper. He froze. Someone was watching him. The suspense made his heart pound. He knew he had to be careful. One wrong move, and he could ruin everything. But he also knew that doing nothing was not an option. Ian took a deep breath. He had made his choice. He would stop the wedding, no matter what. But first, he needed proof, evidence that could convince everyone. Something undeniable. His mind raced through ideas, and he realized the next few minutes would decide everything. The bride's secret, his father's safety, and the truth about the wedding all hung by a thread. And then, just as Ms. Zara smiled at his father again, Ian made his move. He quietly slipped closer to her, ready to uncover the truth, ready to reveal her secret, and ready to face whatever danger awaited him. The golden lights of the wedding hall seemed to flicker as tension filled the air. The laughter, the music, the celebration, all were now a dangerous stage for a secret that could destroy everything. And in that moment, Ian understood that tonight, nothing would ever be the same again. The music in the wedding hall continued, bright and cheerful, but Ian's mind was spinning with fear and determination. He could not shake the words he had seen in the bride's secret paper. Tonight, make it disappear, no witnesses. Every time he looked at his father laughing with the guests, his stomach twisted. Someone was planning to harm the family, and it could happen at any moment. Ian slipped quietly through a side corridor, careful not to be seen. The hall was too full, too loud for anyone to notice him moving. His eyes were sharp, scanning for any sign of Ms. Zara. He remembered the envelope she had carried earlier, the phone whispers, and the quick, nervous movements. It was clear now, this woman had a dangerous plan, and it was not just about stealing money. It could be far worse. He followed her into the garden. The night was calm, and the lights cast long shadows over the flowerbeds. Ms. Zara was alone, but she moved with caution, checking the doors and windows as if she did not want to be seen. Ian ducked behind a bush and watched her open her purse again. She took out the envelope and a small device, something that looked like a remote control. Her fingers trembled slightly as she spoke into her phone again. "This is the last chance. Do it now," she whispered, her voice cold and urgent. Ian's heart jumped. He had no doubt anymore, she was planning something illegal, maybe dangerous. The words were too clear, the actions too secretive. But what exactly was she planning? He had to know before it was too late. He crept closer, trying to hear more, but a branch snapped under his foot. Ms. Zara turned sharply, her eyes scanning the garden. Ian froze, holding his breath. She did not see him and returned to the house, but now he knew he was running out of time. He returned to the hall quickly, careful not to be noticed by the guests. Inside, the celebration was in full swing. People were dancing, eating, and laughing, completely unaware of the danger lurking just steps away. Ian knew he needed proof, something that could stop her immediately. He thought of the envelope, the device, and the phone. He had to find them. Slipping into a small room where Ms. Zara had left her purse, Ian moved quickly. His hands shook as he opened it. Inside, he found the envelope and the device she had used in the garden. He carefully pulled out the paper. It had names, instructions, and a plan that chilled him to the bone. She was not just trying to steal money, she was planning to harm someone during the wedding, maybe even his father. The words were clear, no witnesses, everything must disappear tonight. Ian realized that time was running out. Every second he hesitated could make the plan succeed. He had to act fast. But he also knew he could not confront her alone in front of all the guests. She was smart, careful, and could turn the situation against him. He needed help, someone who could stop her immediately. He thought of the police, but he did not have their direct number. Then he remembered his father's phone. Quick and careful, he borrowed it and sent a short, urgent message: emergency. Wedding danger. Please come immediately. He did not know if the message would reach anyone in time, but it was his only option. Meanwhile, Ms. Zara returned to the hall, her expression calm but her eyes sharp. Ian noticed her scanning the guests, possibly looking for him. His heart raced. He had to stay hidden, but he also could not leave the hall. He needed to watch her every move, ready to act when the moment came. He returned to his spot near the stage where his father would soon give a speech. Ms. Zara joined him moments later, smiling and polite, but Ian saw her glances, calculating, suspicious, careful. Every gesture, every move, was deliberate. She was preparing for something, and he had to stop her before anyone got hurt. Suddenly, a waiter brushed past him, spilling a drink. The noise startled Ms. Zara, and she turned quickly. Ian froze, holding his breath. She looked around, then shrugged and smiled at the nearest guests as if nothing had happened. He exhaled slowly. The tension was unbearable, and he felt the weight of responsibility pressing down on him. Ian knew he had to gather more evidence to expose her in front of everyone. He took out his phone and carefully snapped pictures of the envelope and device when she was distracted. Each click of the camera sounded loud in his ears. He prayed that the police would arrive soon, that he would have enough proof to stop the plan, that he could save his father. As the evening went on, Ian noticed another detail. Ms. Zara had left the hall again, this time moving toward the side gate. He followed, staying hidden in the shadows. From a distance, he saw her meet a man in dark clothes, someone he did not recognize. The two exchanged the envelope and device, whispering urgently. Ian's blood ran cold. This was bigger than he had imagined. She was not acting alone. Someone else was involved, someone dangerous. He felt panic rising but also a surge of courage. He could not let fear stop him. He had to warn his father, stop the bride, and reveal the truth. His mind raced with plans, but he knew that the next few minutes would be critical. If he failed, the consequences could be terrible. Just then, a sound behind him made him turn sharply. A shadow moved near the bushes. Ms. Zara was back, and she was looking directly toward him. Their eyes met for a brief moment, and Ian ducked behind a tree. She did not see him, but the warning was clear: he had been noticed. From now on, he had to be even more careful. The night air was heavy with suspense. Ian's heart pounded. The wedding was continuing, the guests were unaware, and danger was closer than ever. He realized that he had no choice, he must act, and soon. He took a deep breath and whispered to himself, "I will stop this. No one will get hurt. I will save my dad." With that resolve, he began to move toward the hall again, ready to confront the danger, ready to gather final evidence, and ready to race against time to expose Ms. Zara before her plan could succeed. The wedding hall was filled with laughter, music, and clinking glasses, but Ian felt none of it. His heart raced, and his mind was racing faster. The bride's plan was clear now: she was dangerous, and time was running out. Every second that passed brought them closer to disaster. He had to act. But how? The hall was full of guests, cameras, and staff. One wrong move could ruin everything, or worse, put someone in danger. Ian slipped quietly to the side, near a storage room where the staff kept supplies. He pulled out his phone again and checked the photos he had taken of the envelope and the device. The evidence was clear, but he needed more, something undeniable that could stop her immediately. He couldn't just accuse her without proof. If she denied it in front of everyone, she could turn the tables and make him look crazy. He thought about his father, smiling at distant relatives, completely unaware of the danger lurking just steps away. His chest tightened. He couldn't let anything happen to him. The plan had to be stopped tonight, and he had to be clever. Ian moved carefully through the hall, keeping his eyes on Ms. Zara. She was speaking to the guests, laughing politely, but every gesture was calculated. She kept glancing at the side doors, maybe checking if her accomplice was still there. He saw the man she had met in the garden earlier, a tall figure in dark clothes, slipping through the shadows toward the back gate. The urgency of the situation hit him. They had to be stopped before anything happened. He knew he couldn't confront them directly without help. The wedding was too crowded, and the bride was dangerous. He needed someone with authority, someone who could stop the plan immediately. The only option he had left was the police. He quickly sent another message, this time more urgent: emergency. Bride is dangerous, planned to harm my dad. Police must arrive now. As he waited for a reply, he kept moving, staying hidden, trying to observe her every action. Ms. Zara had returned to the stage area where the guests were taking pictures. Ian crouched behind a pillar, holding his phone tightly. Every step she took was deliberate, slow, and careful. She reached into her purse again, and Ian's stomach sank. She might be preparing to activate her plan. Suddenly, one of the guests approached her. She smiled politely, but Ian noticed the slight tension in her shoulders. She was nervous, calculating, aware that something could go wrong. The moment passed, and she turned toward the hall again. Ian saw his chance. He quietly moved closer, slipping through the crowd without being noticed. He ducked behind a large flower arrangement and aimed his phone camera at her purse. Carefully, he snapped pictures of the device she had hidden inside. He could see the small buttons, the wires, and the tiny blinking light. It was ready for use. His stomach tightened. The danger was real, immediate, and he had to act now. At that moment, a loud crash echoed from the side of the hall. Ian froze. The bride's eyes flicked toward the sound, and he noticed her panic. She had not expected anyone to see her, and now her plan might be falling apart. He realized this was the perfect moment to expose her. But he had to act smart. He could not just yell or run in front of everyone. The guests would panic, and the bride might react violently. He needed a plan to reveal her in a way that no one could deny. He quickly ran to the side room where the hall's microphone system was kept. The hall was loud, but with the mic, everyone could hear clearly. He plugged in his phone and prepared to project the photos and evidence. His hands shook, but he forced himself to stay calm. Every second counted. Ms. Zara moved closer to the stage, unaware that Ian was preparing to expose her. The man in dark clothes slipped into the hall as well, scanning the crowd. Ian's heart pounded. He had to act before they could do anything dangerous. Then, from outside the hall, a siren sounded faintly. Ian's eyes lit up. The police were coming. Their arrival was still a few minutes away, but it was enough to give him courage. He could hold the situation until they reached the hall. Ian returned to his hiding spot near the stage, ready to reveal the truth. He saw the bride reach into her purse again, possibly preparing to use the device. His stomach tightened. He couldn't wait any longer. He took a deep breath and whispered to himself, now or never. With careful hands, he pressed the button on his phone to project the photos and evidence onto the big screen above the stage. The room went silent as the images appeared clearly, showing the envelope, the device, and the bride's secret messages. Gasps filled the hall. Guests froze, staring at the screen in shock. The bride's face turned pale. She tried to smile, but it was forced, desperate. Her plan was exposed in front of everyone. The man in dark clothes froze too, realizing their scheme had failed. Ian's father turned toward the screen, confusion and fear in his eyes. He looked at his son, then at Ms. Zara. What is this?" he asked, his voice trembling. Dad, this is the truth," Ian said, stepping forward. She was planning something terrible tonight. I saw it. I followed her. I have proof." Ms. Zara's calm demeanor broke. She tried to grab her purse, to explain, to manipulate the guests, but the police sirens grew louder outside. Within moments, uniformed officers rushed in, taking control of the situation. Guests stepped back, some crying, some shouting. The tension in the hall exploded into chaos, but finally, the danger was contained. Ian's heart was still pounding, but a wave of relief washed over him. He had acted in time. His father was safe, and the bride's plan was stopped. But he knew this was just the beginning. Questions would be asked, the full truth would come out, and emotions would run high. He looked at his father, who stepped forward, eyes wide with disbelief and pride. "Ian, you saved us," he whispered, tears welling in his eyes. Ian nodded, still trembling, but he felt a sense of courage he had never felt before. Tonight had been dangerous, terrifying, and unpredictable. But he had faced it. He had acted. And in doing so, he had saved his family. The wedding hall was still chaotic, with police questioning guests and controlling the situation. Ms. Zara and her accomplice were taken away, struggling and shouting, but powerless now. The danger had passed, but the memory of those tense moments would stay with everyone forever. Ian stepped back, watching the scene unfold. He realized that courage, quick thinking, and determination could change everything. And even in the midst of fear and chaos, doing what was right could save lives. The hall was in chaos. Guests whispered nervously to each other, some crying, some frozen in shock. The music had stopped, replaced by tense murmurs and the faint sound of police radios. Ian's heart was still pounding, but he knew this was far from over. The danger had not disappeared, it had only shifted. Now it was about facing Ms. Zara directly and ensuring she could never harm anyone again. Ian watched her from a distance. She was seated near the stage, her hands trembling slightly as she tried to compose herself. Her eyes flicked around the room, searching, calculating. She was not defeated yet, she was dangerous, and he had to be careful. He could see the panic growing in her eyes, but also the cold determination that had made him suspicious from the very beginning. His father, Mr. Rahim, stepped forward, his voice steady but tense. "Everyone, please remain calm. The authorities are handling the situation." He glanced at Ian, pride and worry mixing in his expression. Ian nodded slightly, knowing his father trusted him, but also realizing that he could not rely solely on the adults to stop the bride's plan completely. Ian moved closer, keeping his eyes on Ms. Zara. He had proof, photos, and witness statements in his phone. But he also needed her to admit the truth, to show the guests and family the danger she had posed. He stepped carefully, weaving between the stunned guests, until he stood a few feet away from her. "Ms. Zara," he said loudly, his voice clear and firm. The hall fell silent, every eye turning toward him. "You have lied to everyone. You have been planning something dangerous tonight. It is over. The police know everything now." Her smile returned, but it was forced, shaky, desperate. "What are you talking about, Ian?" "This is nonsense," she said, her voice smooth but strained. She tried to stand, but the officers nearby blocked her path. Ian held up his phone. "This is the proof," he said, projecting the images and messages onto the large screen again. The crowd gasped. The envelope, the device, her secret instructions, it was all visible, undeniable. The guests leaned in, shock and disbelief painted on every face. Ms. Zara's calm demeanor broke. She lunged slightly, trying to snatch the phone from him, but Ian stepped back quickly, holding it high. Officers moved closer, keeping her at a safe distance. She was shouting now, trying to manipulate the crowd, claiming it was all a misunderstanding. But the proof was clear, and no one believed her lies. "You won't get away with this," she screamed, her voice trembling with rage. "You have no idea what you're doing." "I know exactly what you were planning," Ian said, keeping his voice steady. "And I won't let you hurt my father, my family, or anyone else here. It's over." The tension in the hall was electric. Guests whispered frantically, some pointing, some crying, some clutching their children. Ms. Zara's accomplice tried to rush in, but an officer stepped forward, blocking him firmly. The man froze, realizing that their plan had completely failed. Ian's father moved closer to him. "Ian, are you sure you're okay?" he asked, his voice low but full of concern. "I'm fine, Dad," Ian replied, though his chest heaved from adrenaline. "We stopped her. But she might still try something. We have to be ready." Officers moved in carefully, restraining Ms. Zara. She struggled violently, her eyes wild with panic and anger. "You can't do this. I won't let you ruin everything," she shouted. But the police were firm. Her words no longer carried power, her plan was exposed, her danger neutralized. Ayan watched silently, his mind still racing. He had done it, he had faced the threat, exposed the danger, and kept his father safe. But the intensity of the night left him shaken. The crowd slowly began to calm down, but the emotional shock was still heavy. Friends and family whispered, sharing their disbelief at what had almost happened. One of the officers approached Ayan and knelt slightly. "You did the right thing, young man. If you hadn't acted, this could have been much worse." Ayan nodded silently, feeling a mixture of pride and relief, but also exhaustion. Ms. Zara was escorted toward the exit, still struggling, still screaming. Her accomplice followed, restrained by another officer. The guests stared, unable to believe the wedding they had come to celebrate had turned into a scene of suspense, danger, and near disaster. Ayan's father finally spoke, voice full of emotion. "Ayan, you saved us all. I don't know how to thank you. You were brave beyond words." He knelt slightly to meet Ayan's eyes. "I am so proud of you." Ayan felt a lump in his throat. He had been scared, almost paralyzed at times, but he had acted. He had faced a dangerous adult, a threatening situation, and had come out on the other side victorious. The weight of responsibility, fear, and courage all mingled in his chest, leaving him both exhausted and proud. The guests began to murmur among themselves, some hugging each other, some thanking the officers, some looking at Ayan with admiration. The wedding hall, once a place of celebration, had become a stage for courage, truth, and exposure of danger. And Ayan had been at the center of it all. The night was not over, but the immediate threat had been stopped. Ms. Zara's lies were exposed, her plan foiled, and her accomplice detained. Ayan took a deep breath, feeling the tension slowly drain from his body. He looked at his father, at the relieved guests, at the flashing police lights outside, and knew that bravery, quick thinking, and determination had saved the night. He realized that courage was not the absence of fear, but acting despite it. And tonight, he had done exactly that. The wedding hall had turned into a storm of whispers, shouts, and shocked faces. Guests were frozen in disbelief, some clinging to each other, others standing in stunned silence. The soft music that had once filled the air was gone, replaced by the tense hum of fear and panic. Officers were moving through the crowd, keeping the bride and her accomplice separated from everyone, while Ayan stood in the center, his heart still pounding, trying to make sense of the chaos he had unleashed. Ms. Zara struggled violently as she was led toward the exit. Her voice rang out across the hall. "This is not fair. You are ruining everything. I didn't do anything." Her words were sharp, but empty. The evidence projected on the screen left no room for her lies. Guests pointed and whispered, staring at her with disbelief. Some shook their heads, some covered their mouths, and a few even cried. Ayan's father, Mr. Rahim, stepped forward, his face pale but resolute. He had been shaken, terrified for the safety of his family, but seeing the evidence and the courage of his son filled him with a quiet, steady pride. "Everyone, please remain calm. The authorities are handling this. Thank you, Ayan, for protecting us." His voice was calm but carried the weight of relief and gratitude. The officers worked quickly, checking the device and the envelope for any further danger. Ayan watched closely. The small device was harmless now, disconnected and neutralized, but the instructions and notes in the envelope told the terrifying story of what could have happened. Every guest realized how close they had come to disaster. Murmurs turned into gasps as the reality sank in. One of the guests, an older woman, walked up to Ayan and whispered, "You are incredibly brave. If you hadn't acted, none of us would be safe." Ayan nodded, still feeling a strange mixture of fear and pride. The adrenaline was fading, but the weight of what had happened pressed heavily on him. Outside the hall, police sirens wailed, and more officers arrived to secure the perimeter. The man who had been assisting Ms. Zara was restrained firmly, his hands cuffed, his eyes wide with fear. The bride's accomplice tried to shout something, but the police ignored him. The danger had been stopped, but the tension was still thick in the hall. Ayan's father finally approached him, placing a hand on his shoulder. "Ayan, you saved all our lives tonight. I don't know how to thank you." His voice trembled slightly, full of emotion and relief. Ian looked up at him, breathing heavily, still processing everything that had happened. I knew something was wrong, Dad. I couldn't let anyone get hurt, Ian said simply. He had acted out of instinct and love for his family, but hearing his father's gratitude made him feel proud, despite the exhaustion and fear. Guests began to talk among themselves, some comforting each other, some praising the quick action of Ian and the police. The wedding, once a celebration of love, had become a story of courage, quick thinking, and survival. People could not believe that such danger had been so close, yet everyone was safe because of one boy's determination. Ms. Zara, still restrained, was shouting from the hallway. You don't understand. You're ruining my life. But her words fell flat against the evidence displayed and the police presence. The truth was clear, undeniable, and every guest had seen it. The tension in the hall gradually began to ease as officers took her and her accomplice away. Ian felt a wave of relief wash over him. The danger was over. His father was safe. The guests were unharmed. For the first time since the evening had started, he allowed himself to breathe. But the chaos had left its mark. Everyone had witnessed how quickly a situation could turn from celebration to threat, and how courage could change the outcome entirely. The hall slowly began to quiet down. Officers moved to speak with guests, ensuring everyone understood what had happened and confirming there were no remaining threats. People whispered about the bravery of Ian, about the danger that had been so close, and about the shocking revelation of Ms. Zara's plan. The excitement and joy of the wedding had been replaced by a profound sense of awe and relief. Mr. Rahim gathered the remaining family members and friends. Tonight could have ended badly, he said, his voice serious but calm. But thanks to Ian, everyone is safe. Let us take a moment to appreciate that, and then we can think about how to move forward. He looked at his son, pride shining in his eyes. You showed courage, quick thinking, and wisdom beyond your years. I am so proud of you. Ian felt his chest swell with emotion. He had been scared, but he had acted. He had faced danger, confronted lies, and protected his family. The chaos of the wedding hall, with its shouting guests and flustered officers, faded into the background as he realized the importance of his actions. Courage, determination, and quick thinking had made all the difference. The officers finally escorted Ms. Zara and her accomplice out of the hall. Guests watched silently, some shaking their heads in disbelief, others whispering prayers of thanks. The tension slowly lifted, and the hall returned to a quiet, almost surreal calm. The danger was gone, but the memory of it lingered, a reminder of how fragile peace and celebration could be. Ian looked around at the faces of the guests, at the concerned staff, and finally at his father. Relief, pride, and gratitude filled the room. The wedding, though forever marked by chaos and danger, had also become a story of bravery and resilience. And at the center of it all was a boy who had refused to stand by while others were at risk. He knew the night was far from normal. It would be remembered by everyone present not just as a wedding, but as the night when courage stopped a disaster, when truth exposed danger, and when one boy's quick thinking saved the day. The wedding hall was quiet now. The chaos of the past hour had faded, leaving a strange, heavy calm. Guests still whispered in small groups, some holding their phones, replaying the events, while others hugged each other tightly, grateful for safety. Officers had taken Ms. Zara and her accomplice away, and the evidence of their dangerous plan had been secured. The immediate threat was gone, but the night had left its mark on everyone. Ian stood beside his father, still catching his breath. His small hands were trembling slightly, but his eyes shone with courage and determination. He had faced fear, confronted danger, and acted when it mattered most. For a moment, he allowed himself to feel the weight of what had just happened, the relief, the adrenaline, and the pride. Mr. Rahim placed a hand on Ian's shoulder, his eyes wet with emotion. Ian, you were brave beyond words tonight. You saved all of us. I am so proud of you. His voice was strong but carried the depth of gratitude and love. Ian looked up, his heart swelling. Despite the fear, the chaos, and the uncertainty, his father's words made him feel stronger than he ever had before. You don't have to thank me, Dad, Ian said softly.
I couldn't let anyone get hurt. I had to do something. His voice trembled slightly, still carrying the echo of adrenaline. But he knew he had done the right thing. His actions had prevented a disaster, and his family was safe because of him. Guests began to gather around the two, some offering quiet congratulations, others shaking their heads in disbelief at how close danger had come. "You were amazing, young man," an older woman said, placing a gentle hand on Ian's shoulder. "Courage like yours is rare. You saved lives tonight." Ian nodded, his chest tight with emotion, unable to find words to respond. His father looked around the hall, noticing the relief on the faces of friends and family. "Tonight has been a reminder," he said, his voice steady and calm, "that courage, love, and quick thinking can overcome even the most dangerous situations. We are all lucky to have someone brave like Ian in our lives." The guests nodded, some wiping tears from their eyes. Ian's mother, who had watched from the sidelines, finally approached him. She hugged him tightly, her voice shaking. "My son, my brave, brave son. You kept us safe. You are my hero." Ian hugged her back, feeling the warmth and safety of family surrounding him. For the first time since the night began, he allowed himself to relax. The officers spoke with Mr. Rahim quietly, explaining the situation and the evidence. They assured him that Ms. Zara and her accomplice would face justice and that the danger was completely neutralized. The hall was now secure, the guests safe, and the family able to breathe again. Ian looked around at the tables, at the flowers, at the decorations that had once symbolized joy and celebration. Tonight, those same decorations had witnessed fear, tension, and near disaster. Yet now, they seemed to symbolize something else: resilience, courage, and the triumph of truth. Ian realized that even in the darkest moments, courage could shine through, guiding people to safety and justice. His father took him aside, kneeling slightly to meet his eyes. "Ian, tonight you taught everyone a lesson not just about bravery, but about responsibility, honesty, and love for family. I can't imagine a better son. You acted when it mattered most, and you made a difference that will never be forgotten." Tears filled Mr. Rahim's eyes, but his voice was firm with pride. Ian swallowed, feeling both proud and humbled. He had never imagined being the center of such danger. He had felt fear like never before, but he had faced it and acted. And in doing so, he had protected everyone he loved. The realization filled him with a quiet, deep strength, a knowledge that he could handle challenges no matter how frightening. As the night went on, the remaining guests slowly began to celebrate again, cautiously at first, then with more joy. Music played softly, and people began to share stories, laugh nervously, and hug each other. The wedding, though forever marked by the night's chaos, slowly transformed back into a moment of family, love, and togetherness. Ian's father gathered the family close. "Tonight has been a reminder that life can change in an instant. Danger can appear when you least expect it. But courage, honesty, and quick action can protect those you love. Ian has shown us all the true meaning of bravery." The family nodded, their faces filled with admiration and gratitude for the young boy who had saved them all. Ian smiled faintly, feeling a sense of calm and completion. He had faced the storm, exposed the lies, and stopped the danger. His courage had made a difference. And in that moment, he understood something important: being brave was not about being fearless, it was about facing fear, acting when it mattered, and protecting those you loved no matter what. The night drew to a close with the family and close friends gathered together. They shared quiet conversations, hugs, and tears, reflecting on the events of the evening. Ms. Zara and her accomplice were gone, justice was on its way, and the family could finally breathe again. Ian sat quietly beside his father, feeling the warmth of love and safety surrounding him. And in the quiet moments, as the lights of the hall dimmed and the last guests left, Ian understood that tonight, he had not only saved a wedding, he had saved his family, their trust, and their sense of safety. He had discovered the strength within himself, and that strength would stay with him forever.